Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Miles' trial at NFSC Speaks from every day from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. As everybody was aware, Miles' trial has begun since last Wednesday. This is the day 4 of his trial, and we would like to share certain recent updates about what was happening today in the court. And for people who are not familiar with Miles' case, he was charged with 12 federal counts. Mostly were related to financial charges, conspiracy to wire fraud, securities fraud, related to some investment projects as well. One of the charge was also related to RICO counts. So as the procedure goes, we do have more court updates. The court has been giving opening statements from both sides since last Friday. The juror selection was completed last Friday morning, and so the government now has called upon several witnesses and started to do cross-examinations. So we would like to have our supporter from Southern District of New York today to give us certain updates today. So let's welcome Kevin to the program.
Hi Ella, good to be on the show again.
Hi Kevin, thanks for joining us today. So tell us a little bit about what is going on today. As we all know, the trial begins every day from 9 a.m. to 2:40. I would assume you just walked out of the courtroom. So tell us a little bit. I heard that the government called on a witness and through a lengthy questioning about the witness. So brief us a little bit of the situation today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, first, I guess I'll just, walk a bit about what happened earlier in the morning. So today in the morning, it was a pretty exciting, pretty interesting because, so at 8:50, we went in and then Miles came in and he actually waved at each and every fellow fighter and also smiled and was looking around. And, today he was very energetic, very high-spirited. He was wearing a light gray suit, lightish colors shirt and a light blue tie. And so, he was also just continuing looking around at the door to see if any other fellow fighters were coming in, as the trial does start at 9:30, and this was around 9. And then so, throughout the wait, he was continuously, looking back and forth between each and every fellow fighters, just smiling and nodding. And then at 9:30, the trial officially starts for the second day. And then, so at 9:30, the third government witness is brought in. And like you mentioned, it was a very lengthy questioning process. I think it went on from about, 9:30 to, I would say around maybe 1 before the cross-examination was, even started. And so the very, quick overview of the first witness by the prosecution was basically just talking about each and every one of the businesses mentioned in the indictment. For example, GTV, G Clubs, Farm Loan Program, as well as Himalaya Exchange. And it was just they were just asking about how confirming the witness was an investor in these G series. And they talked more about his role in the NFSC as well, the type of work he did. And so after that, then the cross-examination started. And from there, the defense, was trying to frame how, the NFSC and the G series were more of an ecosystem, and went through about how each and every one of the businesses named in the indictment had a certain purpose. For example, GTV was, a social media platform meant, free of CCP censorship, and so on. And then afterwards, the cross-examination was not finished, but the judge called an early end to the day at around 2:40.
I see. And so did the judge give out any explanations if the cross-examination of this witness will continue tomorrow?
Yes. So the exact reason why it was called early was because the defense was about to move on to a different subject matter, and so the judge decided to end it early because it's probably going to take a little longer. So that's the reason why.
Absolutely. And then are all of the jurors present today with the 6 alternative on site as well?
Yeah, every single juror was present.
Right, and so Kevin, this is your I would say day 4 of you meeting Miles in the courtroom. Has his spirits changed anything. Obviously we knew that he and his defense team had worked very hard of preparing for the trial, and it was very intensive. From early morning till afternoon, and he probably would have another defense meeting afterwards. How does he look like beyond the decent suits, beyond the clean shirts and the high spirits?
Yeah. I think he was very energetic today. It must be because of the long weekend. Hopefully he was able to get some rest. But I mean, even earlier, like in the morning, he was helping fix one of his lawyers, callers actually, Sid, I think his name is, and he was just helping him, and they were laughing around, joking, and he seemed very high-spirited, energetic, and focused as well. And as I mentioned earlier, he was just always looking back and forth at our fellow fighters while there were breaks or any waiting periods.
Right. And was the courtroom filled today? Obviously we knew that some of the supporters were able to actually visit the courtroom, and there might be also other public spectators as well. So were there any other reporters that you recognize, who are present today in the courtroom?
Yeah. So there were a bunch of reporters that I recognized from last week. During the jury selection process, as well as during Friday when the trial started. So it seems like they come back again this time. And also, obviously there are also a lot of fellow fighters I saw from last week as well, and other public viewers.
Right. So, and correct me if I am wrong, because obviously the government bears the burden to prove the charges and the counts, right? And so the majority of the time today in the courtroom were actually spent by the government to call on witness, to question the witness. And so I would assume this will apply to the future days as well, as the government still bear that burden to prove first, and then it will move on to the defense team, right?
Yes. So I mean, the judge was very clear about it in the morning, during the jury selection process, where she explained the entire how the trial was to go. First, it'll be defense and prosecution opening statements, and then move on to the witnesses. And for each witness, the prosecution will start with questioning, and then that'll take a bit, and then afterwards the defense has a chance to cross-examine, and from there the prosecution also has another chance to cross-examine, and then after that there's also chances for the defense to ask more questions. So it's just like a back and forth until both sides run out of questions, and then from there the next witness is called by the prosecution.
Right. And were any of the exhibits shown today in the courtroom, like documents, videos, or recordings? Were any of those present today?
Yeah, so there were a bunch of recordings shown today, as well as exhibits of screenshots of a website, for example, G-Fashion, as well as documents. And so the the prosecution would call on the witnesses and ask, does this look familiar? Have you seen this before? Or what is this document about? And so it was just those basic questions, and then just showing to the jury that the witness is clear on what each evidence presents.
Right. And did the jury provide any body language or reaction when the witness was giving testimony today?
Yeah, I noticed that the jurors were taking a lot of notes today, especially during the prosecution cross-examination phase. Definitely more than Friday, probably because this was a longer period of questioning by the prosecution. But they were also just as invested in the questioning when during the during the defense phase. And there was actually this sort of, I guess, not a mistake, but sort of funny mishap where one of the Miles' lawyers accidentally said the government calls or presented the evidence when he should have said defense, and there was the entire courtroom laughed, and the jurors also laughed as well. And so there was just this tiny bit of humor added in there that the jurors also are reacting to, which is a good sign.
Right, exactly. And it is important for people to actually get a sense of the temperature in the courtroom, right? Obviously we understand it's a very complex process, and we hope that everybody can get things out of it, so Kevin, how was our supporters doing today? Obviously I understand it's day 4, and it was a very packed week last week for everybody, to get up early, go to the courtroom, take notes, went back and report on the program. How was everybody doing today?
Like I said, it was the long weekend, so I'm sure every fellow fighter got some much needed rest and relaxation time. And this morning they were very energetic, they're ready to go. Excited to see Miles again, and excited to see how the trial progresses.
And since last week, we have been noticed that the Chinese Communist Party also sent out their journalists and their reporters, based in New York, and started to questioning people about their knowledge on Miles' case. Was the specific CCP reporter also present today in the court?
Yes, I did notice her, and a bunch of other reporters as well were there too.
Right. So obviously, Mr. Guo's case still draws lots of attentions and this was not just from the Chinese government, right? It was also from other media outlets as well. So Kevin, walk us through some specific or typical questions that the government raised for their witness to give testimony today.
Yeah. So during the prosecution questioning, the prosecution would show documents, for example, some investor documents, as well as also like transcripts. So as I mentioned before, there were a bunch of videos played today sometimes talking about the farm loan program, sometimes talking about the GTV private placement. And so since the GTV private placement videos were in Chinese, there were transcripts being played as well and shown on screen. And so the prosecution would ask the the witness to read out loud the translation of the video. And so this would allow the juror to understand and to hear what was being said in the exhibits.
Right.
And then, other than that, there were also certain questions they asked, such as, do you recognize this document? Or can you tell the jury what this is about? And then also a bunch of, yes or no questions as well.
Right, and so, just to clarify, right, the videos that you mentioned or that was presented today in the courtroom were videos containing Miles himself, or it was an announcement video by Miles, or is video by witness? What type of videos were that?
Yeah, so there were some of the videos were by Miles himself. For example, the GTV private placement. From what I understand, there were videos meant only for investors interested in the private placement, and so he had videos of himself, speaking about it and talking about it, and so that was one of the videos played, and so that also had a transcript attached, like I said, and that transcript is what the witness would read to the jurors.
I see. So was the witness, answering questions in English, or was the witness using a translator to help him?
So he answered every single question in English. And he mentioned that during the defense cross-examination that the witness had never used a translator ever when interacting with the prosecution.
Get it. So, when cross-examinations begins today, right? And what subject has already been covered? You mentioned that, the judge actually cut off, the process in the middle because the defense wants to change the subject matter. Everybody understands that it might take longer. So what subject matter that was already included today, in terms of defense cross-examination?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Miles's lawyers, the defense, they talked about how, each one of the businesses mentioned in the indictment has a purpose, right? And he was sort of asking questions to the witness about that. So for example, GTV, like I mentioned earlier, social media platform, right? Free of CCP censorship, and Himalaya Exchange, a cryptocurrency exchange. And then they also talked about how, because the prosecution in the beginning, they mentioned a lot about G-Fashion, especially about how the witness himself had bought a lot of G-Fashion clothes, and he also gave some testimony regarding that. And so the defense, he went and talked to the witness about how it was his choice to buy those clothes, and no one forced him to do that. It was his choice completely. And then the defense also asked about what he does as his job, and the witness replied that he's a real estate agent and he owns his own company. And then after that, the defense lawyer moved on to talking about the GTV investment, as well as any other investments such as in G Club's membership as well as the H Coins quota. And then the defense also asked about how if the witness ever had direct contact with Miles, and the witness said no to many of those questions. And then other than that, that's when the cross-examination ended for today, and then it will continue tomorrow.
And so Kevin, what's your initial impression? Obviously, it was a bit different from what we saw since last Friday. And last Friday, with the two witness, right? The questioning was short, very concise, and they finished the cross-examination in one day. And obviously, for the third witness, it was a lengthy questioning process, even by the government itself. And I would assume that the government would call on more witnesses in the upcoming days as well. So how do you feel that, and do you believe that that the government is now preparing to actually make every testimony or the cross-examination a longer process comparing to last week?
Yeah, I mean, we know from the beginning that this trial is going to take 7 weeks, right? So you can only imagine how many witnesses will be called, especially since the opening and closing statements shouldn't take more than a day. And so just the time span between the beginning and the end of the trial, or the estimated end of the trial, there's definitely going to be a lot of witnesses called. And it's possible that there'll be more witnesses such as today, where the questioning and the cross-examination will take longer than a day. And there's also instances where it could be short, as in on last Friday. But just based on today, today was a very lengthy and thorough questioning by the prosecution, and I'm sure there'll be just as a thorough and a lengthy cross-examination by the defense. So I think just based on today, it seems that the trial is going pretty smoothly. Questions are being asked and answered, and there's no roadblocks or any stoppages.
And how was Miles doing, when all of these questioning, went towards the witness? Did he take any notes? Did he talk to his defense team? What was his reactions at the time?
Yeah, so I would say it was just like, Friday he was talking to his defense team. Sometimes he was taking notes, and also, just also looking straight ahead, staying focused and attentive. And he was also pretty high-spirited as well, like I mentioned earlier. He was when there were breaks, he was looking around fellow fighters as well as sometimes at the jurors as well. When during the prosecution's questioning as well as during the defense's questioning, he was also looking at jurors from time to time. Just trying to, I guess I'm assuming, trying to read their what they're thinking. And so other than that, just normal Miles reactions.
Right, exactly. It's very good to hear, updates from you, Kevin, and that we appreciate so much, right? And just about, your understanding of the courtroom and your understanding of the process. Do you think that, that tomorrow that the defense will ask more questions about this witness? And obviously, one of the statements that the defense team made today regarding to the purchase of G-Fashion it was individual choice, right? It was his choice of purchasing clothes from G-Fashion, and no one else forces him doing so. What was the witness statements about G-Fashion specifically? Was he complaining about the enterprise? Was he complaining about the price? What was his main stand-up points today? When he mentioned or testified against these entities?
Yeah. So when he mentioned G-Fashion, I believe his exact statement about G-Fashion was that the clothes were very ordinary. And then after that, the prosecution asked more questions about, the G-Fashion website and the clothes itself. And they actually had the G-Fashion clothes that the witness bought as exhibits, and they passed it around to the the jurors to let them, feel the clothes as well as see it. And he also mentioned there was this limited edition gold 24K necklace, and how that it was there was like some markings on it, and he wasn't sure if it was authentic. And so that's one of the reasons why he didn't really, I'm assuming, like the G-Fashion items he bought. And again, this necklace was also, or this chain was also passed around to the jurors. And then, that was the gist of the prosecution questioning on G Fashion. Just about how much it costed, the quality, and like if he bought them. And then the defense's, cross-examination on that was just, it was your choice, right, to buy a G Fashion, right? He was not coerced, he was not forced to do anything, and he just bought it out of his own free will.
And so I noticed one single detail, right? When you said that one of the exhibit was actually the clothes that he purchased from G Fashion, and that the physical clothes or the physical piece of jewelry was actually presented to the juror today. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Wow. So, obviously the type of exhibits on the courtroom, like in the courtroom, was also interesting, right? We, originally we think that some of the evidences or exhibits were only being photos, documents, testimonies, statements, affidavit, recordings, videos. Now that the government's witness also brought some physical pieces, so it's an interesting detail to mention and to share to the public. And so, did the judge, say anything about what to expect tomorrow? Obviously, we understand that the cross-examination of this specific witness was not completed. Did the government say anything about tomorrow's agenda in terms of the prosecution team might have called on, or present more exhibits tomorrow?
So I left early before she announced what would happen tomorrow, but just before I left, she ended the jury, the court trial for today, and then she mentioned to both counsels, government and defense, whether they have anything else to add or discuss in private. And then I'm assuming tomorrow that the cross-examination of the witness will continue, of the exact same witness as today, will continue until both sides have no more questioning, and then from there the fourth witness will be called, and then the usual process continues.
How was the juror doing today? Obviously they agreed to attend the trial with the length of 7 weeks. And from last Friday we noticed a detail, right? That when Sabrina, when our defense team's lawyer gave out this opening statements telling everybody about Miles' family histories, about how his family, his daughter and his wife were arrested by the Chinese Communist Party when they were in China, about how much political prosecution that the CCP tried to put against Miles himself, that all of the jurors actually leaned their back and listened very attentively to the opening statements given by the defense team. And how were the jurors today, especially when they saw the clothes from G Fashion, when they look at the chains of G Fashion necklace, were there any specific reaction that you recall?
Yeah, so I mean, the jurors they all gave different reactions. Some were, inspecting closely the clothes, because some of the clothes still had the tags on them, and I saw some of them reading the tags as well as looking at the labels, I guess, to see the ingredients or where it was manufactured. And then some also just took a quick look and passed it around. But I'm assuming a lot of the jurors were able to feel the quality of G Fashion as well as see where it was manufactured and come to their own conclusions about G Fashion clothes.
So, it is a bit surprising that, that the witness actually brought in actual pieces of G Fashion products to the courtroom. And so, obviously, Kevin, you've gave us a very sufficient briefing on what was going on in the courtroom today. So we thank for your hard works and reporting and your trip to Southern District of New York every day. And it was much, much appreciated for us and for the audience as well. So, Kevin, thank you so much today.
Thank you, Ella, for having me again.
All right, folks, and now we're excited to have new guests into our studio today. And I would like to introduce Feder and Jackson to all of the audiences. I'm pretty sure Feder is a familiar face for our families in Alpha TV, but Jackson, it's his initial presence on this studio, in this studio, and with our Alpha TV families as well. So Jackson, please say hello to the families.
Hello everybody, it's me. My name is Jackson, and that's it. I'm excited to be here. This is a beautiful place. What a beautiful studio. Look at the background. I'm with some beautiful people in a beautiful office. I got to see and meet Mr. Miles Gould today. I mean, today's a beautiful day, 528-224. Never forget.
Right, and Feder, you just went from Southern District of New York. You just went from the courtroom. So say hello to our audience, and I have lots of questions for you guys.
Hi, I'm Feder. I'm really happy to be back and share the latest news on the court, the trial progression. So thank you for having Ella again, and thank you for LFA TV for having us on the platform.
Exactly, and so Jackson, let me ask you first,
Okay.
right? Because obviously Feder has been in the courtroom for 4 days, and you get used to, what was the process and what the courtroom looks like and how Miles was handling all of these trial process. And it was your first time to see Miles
Yes.
today, right?
Yes.
And so how was your initial impression, first of all? And
Okay.
obviously you've seen him through broadcasts,
Yep.
through TV screens lots of times,
Yep.
but just by seeing him in person,
Wow.
tell us a little bit.
Okay, absolutely. I mean, Mr. Miles Gould, number one, super handsome, walked out. I mean, you can see the way he walks, his body language, the way he carries himself is just, is not an ordinary person by any means. In a beautiful suit, fits him super well. And anyways, it's just, I'm at a loss for words. I'm still trying to internalize a little bit the whole experience. I'm trying to soak it in a little bit, but the initial impression, for sure, super handsome, and he looked just like how he does, and on the screen and in person. So I can't wait. I think this is going to be a wonderful experience. This whole trial with everything is just it's a dream come true. I would say.
And did he smile at you?
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the supporters went in together. So did he wave at you? Did he smile at you? Did you feel his energy when he walked in?
Yeah, like when Mr. Miles Gould looks at you, he looks beyond you, and it's just super cool. We made eye contact multiple times, and it was like, wow, I don't know what love at first sight kind of feels like. Oh, man, it was one of those moments, right? Where you're like, wow, okay, I've been following Mr. Miles for all these years, and I got to see him in person, and this is the setting that where I get to meet him at. It's wonderful. He didn't have to say anything, but via just his body language and the way he looks at you, it's
It's the chemistry in that environment, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously, I know you fall in love into Miles today, so and so Feder, tell us a little bit about today's progression in the courtroom. Obviously, we understand that the government called on a new witness,
Yes.
and since last Friday, 2 witnesses has been brought to the court.
Yes.
And today, the witness was a former member, in the political movement.
Yes.
And so what subject matter has the prosecution team, asked the witness to testify today?
A lot of questions, a lot of things were covered. Basically, from GTV, from GTV to G Club, and G Series, G Fashion, and basically all the G Series investments related to Miles was brought up, and everything's been mentioned from including Rule of Law Foundation, and we have stipulations on the evidence stipulation on a lot of videos and agreement documents and investment document checks, all the proofs that prove he was a formal investor and potentially a donator for the movement, and as well as volunteer. As you mentioned, it was volunteer, doing a lot of volunteer work for the farm. From the farm, let me just check again just to make sure I cover things I want to. We covered like a video about a video on Go Media as well. That was like early on,
Right.
And we went into the investment detail as well.
Right.
Yes.
So lots of the statements that the first, the third witness did was investment related, right? Company related, or farm related, or volunteering activities related.
Yes.
And so when the witness appeared in the court, did the prosecution team ask why he joined the political movement previously? Did the
Yes.
prosecution team ask?
Yes, they actually did. They started things off by telling his story. You know, for example, why did you do this? You know, how did you discover Mr. Miles Gould?
Right.
Oh, he watched a YouTube video, you know, and things like that. And he went into a little bit about his storytelling, telling the story of the witness to say, oh, back in the Cultural Revolution, this is what happened to my family and things like that, which led him to joining the whistleblower movement and following Mr. Miles Gould. And so they definitely touched on it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and then you know, when he mentioned about all of his understanding or relationship or previous connection with all these companies, what are the types of evidence that were being presented to the court today?
Let me just recap here. There's so many notes I took.
You mentioned about certain videos, right, that was being
Yes.
played.
Video of Miles Gould. Yes, there's a video that he briefly talked about that some like the interested investor should contact him, and he will give further information and documents
About the investment.
legal documents about the investment. A video of that, and about Steve Bannon. There's a press conference. Yeah. What else do you know?
Yeah. Oh, well, with the Steve Bannon. So with when he all the clips they played, I wouldn't say they nitpicked, but they didn't tell the full story as much. But they were just, you know, point by point. They definitely played the clip of Steve Bannon. That was speaking a little bit about the investment, the Rule of Law Foundation, and things like that. Let me see. They also covered.
Did they present to the court or to the jurors about where the videos can be found, or it was all named just as one of, you know, numbers and letters as kind of like government exhibits?
It was a government exhibit. Also, I remember clearly that the witness watched the video online, but after the live stream and as well during the live stream when the video was streaming on the internet. So he was watching it live at the time, which I believe it was 2020.
Yeah. So like what Feder was trying to say was those videos were actually clips or part of the broadcast in the past, right, by Miles, and so the government produced you know, the clips of previous broadcasts and made it as government's exhibits, right? And so, you know, from my understanding, it was mainly about two videos. The first videos was about you know, a press conference jointly by Steve Bannon and Miles together. They probably talk about the foundation of Rule of Law Society, right? And that was a broadcast actually dated in 2018. And because it was a special day, right, and it was a very important press conference for everybody. And so the second video clip sounds to me was more related to GTV private placement, right? It was more about how these investors can be connected with Miles about these investment pieces. And so when these two videos were played to the jurors, did the juror give out any reactions? Obviously, you know, they did not question the witness themselves, but when our supporters came back since last Friday, right, everybody stated that when Sabrina gave the opening statements, the juror listened very attentively and they leaned their back. And was that the same situation today when the videos were played?
Well, here's the thing about the videos. They were super short. They literally, like, the clip is maybe less than even a minute.
Wow.
And they didn't even play the full clip.
Wow.
They play a little bit and they paused it and they just continued on with, you know, the conversation instead of digging too deeply into the video.
Right.
Until the cross-examination, that's when we started, you know, talking about, hey, there's way more to the story than just that little bit.
Right. Right. And like what Jackson said, right? For people who watch Miles' broadcast, right, it was always more than 1 hour, right? Usually it's more than 1 hour, and even with very short video clips that he made, it was like several minutes. So it was very surprising to me that when the videos were presented, it was only a short clip of it, and obviously it was not the full story. And so when the witness was being questioned by the government, did he also mention any other exhibits? I heard from Kevin that, you know, G-fashion clothes were brought into the court, like jewelry pieces were brought into the court. Tell us a little bit, how did that happen?
So we start talking about G-fashion, and then they start to showing, first of all, with the hat.
Yeah.
So the G Fashion hat, and then one by one there's a hat, there's a silk pants.
Yep. And then the gold whistle.
The gold whistle. And I have
Mm-hmm.
a list here: the baseball hat, the black shirt, a silk pants, and the whistle.
Mm-hmm.
And then he weighed. It's really interesting. Okay, the witness weighted this whistle.
Oh, so he weighted a whistle,
and then give a number of the weight of the whistle.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was asked why he weighted the whistle, he said he was just curious. And so he was telling us how much each of the items worth on a G Fashion, and then we pull out the G Fashion website as another evidence, and to show. Is this that item matching the one on the website that you purchased? And he's like, yes. He just confirming the items on the G Fashion, and then this whole this whole testimony just gave me the impression of they're trying to say that it's very expensive. And then one more thing. He said when he was asked about the quality of the G Fashion, he said very ordinary and normal. There's nothing particular. That implement that he thinks these items are not worth the price.
Right.
I think this is overpriced and implement that he's a victim.
Right.
Kind of thing. And each items was brought up to the drawers and for them to see how they are.
So the 4 items, right?
Yes.
The hat, the silk pant, the black T-shirt, and the drawer and the whistle.
Yes.
The 4 items were all presented to the drawers today.
Yes.
And did the drawer, give out? Obviously, they need to touch the material. They need to see it, right? And so, what was the process? Because there were 12 people, right?
Yeah.
Some past I just gonna say one observation.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's one person I remember clearly that he flipped the pants upside down and looked inside out and took the tags, and he was touching it. He was like looking at it like with putting it in front of him like that. I personally, I think he was really appreciating the pants. Like, maybe he'll buy one of those.
It's a Doni pants, right? I would assume. Is
Yeah.
it a Doni pant? A silk Doni pant?
The
white one.
Yeah.
The white one.
For
Mhm.
women, yes.
Yeah, it's very nice for sure. And I saw some of the ladies that were looking at the pants especially. I think the whistle, they were very interested at the whistle. But the pants, I think it really comes down to perspective of how somebody values some things.
Right.
They did mention that he's in the real estate business. So for example, if imagine this, right, for everybody, all the audience that's watching, if you agreed upon a price, let's just say $1 million house, you and the seller, the buyer and the seller agreed that, okay, we're gonna pay $1 million and I'm gonna sell it for $1 million. But let's just say X amount of time go by, the buyer comes back and says, I don't know, the house is actually, I don't think it's worth that much anymore. It doesn't it doesn't work that way.
Right.
And it's just super interesting is because if you look at the website that they played had on the screen, it's actually the old website. It's not the newest most updated website. So anyways, I thought that was very interesting for sure. They were trying to defame G Fashion a little bit. But
yeah, I mean, it was interesting to me that they were trying to bring in physical pieces, right? When people trying to when people trying to prove that how that the quality was not matching with the price, they actually will not present the actual items. And when the actual items brought to the drawer, I think the pieces itself were statements, right? Because everybody can feel the material, that it was not just by how a witness stated that they do not believe in the price, they do not believe in the quality. It would that the material itself, that the pieces themselves actually speaks for them.
Yeah, like I was telling him when we were like when that was happening in the court, was like, if someone cannot afford buying a shirt that worth $200, why would they even try to buy it? And if they think there's something with the quality, why didn't they contact this customs service in the first place? And now they're trying, like, standing out and accuse, okay, this is not worth the worth the money, and they should give me a refund or something. Like it's trying to leading the audience, the jurors, let's say, to think about. To think this thing in a different direction, right?
What's interesting is that Mr. Malschool has said this in the past. G Fashion is not just a fashion brand.
Right.
It means so much more. There's so much more depth to what the brand represents. So that just goes to show you, as to the value is in the eye of the beholder. right? And so that goes to show you who he is more than who we are, I think.
Right. And I think, the unique style, the design, right, it was all made by Chinese, obviously, and the fashion culture is now different. So I was very surprised that the physical pieces were actually brought into the courtroom as well. And so before the lunch break today, right, let's slow down a little bit. Before the lunch break today, did the defense team start cross-examination? Because it sounds to me that today the witness, the government spends lots of time questioning this witness today.
Yes. So before lunch break, unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to do the cross-examination. So it didn't even. The direct examination haven't finished yet. So it kept going after about let's say around an hour.
After the lunch break?
After the lunch break to start the examination.
It's pretty lengthy.
Yes. And a lot of things were covered regarding the protest, regarding why did he stop supporting Miles.
What did the witness say?
He said because he thinks a lot of actions that's done by the movement, he considered them wrong.
Okay.
Wrong actions of whistleblower movement, and he thinks that there's a lot of problems between the farms and farm leaders.
Okay.
And that's the two factors I noted. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, like what Feather was saying earlier, he was saying that, what was that first thing again?
Wrong action.
Wrong action, correct. So when he said it, like he had this facial expression that I can't really explain, but it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Like, it almost sounded like because if you follow Mr. Miles Guo, you support Mr. Miles Guo and the whistleblower movement and the NFSC, this is an anti-CCP movement. Okay, so this is way more. This is beyond just how do you say, a W-2, somebody will go to a job, right? Go to an office kind of thing. So in my personal opinion, well, that's the answer that he gave, that he felt like what we were doing were wrong. The NFSC, the whistleblower movement, Ms. Miles Guo, what we were doing, apparently taking down the CCP is wrong, right? So that was, his answer.
Yeah, it was funny to me because it was not even relevant to the charges that the government gave, right? The government wasn't talking about whether the actions of the political movement was correct or wrong. The government's burden was only to prove the charges that Bray brought against Miles is valid. It was beyond reasonable doubt. So when presenting the pieces saying that the quality was not matching the price, and when talking about that he himself personally believes personally have a different beliefs in the political movement that he first joined. It sounds to me that it was not even relevant to the charges. I found it very interesting that even when going through these questioning, the relevance of their testimony and the credibility of their testimony matters a lot in the federal, courtroom process, because it was not just about how your individual opinion was about Miles or about this movement. It was about whether legally it will be effective on Miles's case. So when, in the afternoon, when our defense team started to question the witness, what questions were, first brought to the witness today?
Okay, I remember that very clearly. The first question I ever asked is that, have the witness ever contacted Miles personally for a refund?
For refund,
because the witness claimed that he had around $30,000 of loss, and he was asked the first question if he ever contacted him by email or anything, and then no, the answer is no, by all means.
Yeah. I mean, the defense team did a really, really amazing job. We were very gracious to give the other team a lot of time, with the witness, and you can tell the answers were, how do you say, somewhat well oiled, right? Rehearsed might be another word, but what I'm saying is when our time came. Wow, that was the exciting part. I'm like, okay, we're living in a movie. Mr. Miles.
Did you fall asleep?
No.
Oh no, I can prove that.
Yeah. I mean, Mr. Miles was sitting right there. Sid went up and he was talking on the mic, and then the judge was very attentive. She was on it, and I mean, every single thing that the the other team went over point by point from the very beginning. And tomorrow's gonna be way more exciting too, because we're nowhere near done with this guy yet. And
And a general impression for me is that a lot of questions are not answered I would say correctly, but then the question asked one way, and then when he answered the other way. And then the lawyer always brought back, okay, but sir, I asked you this question, can you answer me this question instead of that? And as he said, it's a well-oiled, well-buttered.
Yeah, it was very important to, when people appear in the courtroom, right? If they ask about yes or no, your answer must be yes or no, because it was the rule in the courtroom, and it was the credibility of the witness, right? That you appear to the court, that you understand the question, you understand what is, what you will be talking about, and you have confidence of your testimony. So it is very important that when a witness, appear that do not have a full comprehension of the question, or obviously trying to avoid answering certain questions, will definitely leave impressions among the jurors as well.
Like Jackson mentioned to me, that it's let's say the government witness is telling a story, and the defendant's team were just trying to fill the blanks that they never mentioned when they're telling the story. And while telling the full story, getting the full picture to the jurors, they are also address each of the arguments that the government brought up in the direct examination. Yes.
Yeah, and especially when our time came, when our defense team was cross-examining the witness, then I started seeing more nods from the jurors. I think they're trying to connect the dots behind the stories of what's happening. Just some of the names that he's mentioned, because he's been with two different farms actually, or multiple different farms, and he's played his role in different things, and it's just that it's just very interesting, because from my perspective, it's just, how do I say, it was very difficult to get the full picture until we cross-examined. Then we fill in the rest. It's like, oh, okay, I see. So I was trying to put myself in the juror's position too, to learn the story as if I had no idea about learning it for the first time.
Right.
But interesting enough, when he was asked if they know who owns Guo Media, he said it's GTV. I said, who in charge of GTV? He said, I don't know. And when I believe that is true, because at the end of the cross-examination, well, today at the end of time, it didn't finish, but at the end of today, he would our lawyer asked him a series of questions regarding if there's anything is related to Miles Guo that his investment went. You know what I mean? If he said any of the investment is of GTV, G Clubs, H Coins, G series are related to Miles Guo directly, the answer to that is no. Any of that. Yeah.
So even the witness himself said no to that question, right?
Yeah.
That he did not believe that all these investments were directly linked with Miles.
He said there's no direct connection, and he never contacted Miles personally, ever spoke to him before.
Yep. I mean, he admitted in court everything is legally documented now, so it's very interesting. And it's just. For example, in court, they've said the NFSC, and then asked him, what does the NFSC stand for? And then he said, oh, the new federal state of China, and it's just for example, some of the stories that he was telling about the investment that he had with VOG, for example, and things like that, and he was trying to connect that to Mr. Miles Guo, but they never had any one-on-one conversation at all. It was always with a third party, somebody else.
Yeah, they showed an exact document that's called the Limited Purpose Agency Agreement, and which the other representative is as an agency to present this witness. So the investment has nothing to do with Miles, and it was completely separate from. It's a different group of investment that was all. I was gonna go to GTV, but it was always separated.
Right. So it sounds to me like the witness has given lots of information and trying to fill in the background story for the jurors. And the defense team made a very good point of questioning, even though the cross-examination today was not even completed, right? And so when judge, cut off today's procedure today, did the judge mention about the agenda, tomorrow? Obviously, you understand the cross-examination of this witness will continue. But did the judge mention anything about specific that, both parties needs to be minded today?
There's I didn't hear anything about tomorrow, but there's like they took a little break where they were doing some verification of the questions to ask the witness, like things like, shouldn't be asking like, shouldn't you do this, or wouldn't you do that if you were this? Like this is kind of indicating or leading,
right?
And they were giving like just some communication between the judge and the lawyers and how to ask the question properly, and so that doesn't confuse the jurors as well.
Right,
yes.
right. And did the government says any objection when our defense team started cross-examining?
Actually, no.
No?
The judge was actually, she said, what's the word that they use? The opposite of objection? What's that word?
Overrule?
Overrule. So she always allowed the defense team to continue asking the questions.
But the government did raise objections.
Yes.
A lot of objections.
Right.
Yes.
A lot of objections.
Yep.
And the judge overruled the government's objection,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I just also wanted to mention about when they talking about NFSC during the cross-examination, when he was asked the reason and feelings to joining the G Club and the farms, and, why did you decide to join, or how do you feel about joining? Is it like something you're so proud of or something like that? And he said, first thing he says, getting stocks.
Yeah.
So the first intention of joining G Clubs and the farm, agreeing to the farm loan program and all that, it's to get stocks. So,
and what was the next question to that?
The next question, it's about having a choice. Well, yes, getting stocks, and also they were talking about the restrictions on the agreement, whether he read the restrictions and he agreed to the restrictions. And then we mentioned about having a choice on spending money on G clubs or joining the clubs.
Right.
So it's all agreed under the agreement.
Right.
And within the agreement, there's restrictions now that it's been being brought up.
Right.
And then as well as I think the transcript of the video that Miles filmed, it was also brought up that there's several documents they should be reading and then understanding
exactly.
some risky investments. And before you proceed, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of like a regular disclaimer of everything, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like people inform you about an investment, they inform you about the risks, and with every investment you made, the risk is losing money. And so it was common that people read out loud the disclaimer and read out loud those risks to the public. And when those agreements or documents being presented today, were those documents signed by the witness as well?
Yes. Yeah, it had the signatures on it. I mean, you can imagine driving a car off a lot, it'll lose X amount percent, value already. So what I'm saying is like, it's very interesting because when the cross-examination started, when we started doing the cross-examination, especially when it came to not just the investment part, with also the G fashion and everything else, a lot of it came down to your personal choice. Like, what was your true intention?
Right.
Joining the whistleblower movement, supporting Mr. Miles Guo, the NFSC, and everything else. And I felt like as soon as the cross-examination started happening, then we are able to start like getting a true feel for the person's true colors. And he kept going back to saying, I did this because I was promised stock options, I was promised this and promised that. And so he kept going back to that instead of saying, hey, our family's been through this or that, and I'm in this to take down the CCP, which is our mission. Right. So he's not very aligned with the mission versus he had his own whatever intentions he had.
Right. And specifically with financial intentions, right? Those promises, quote unquote promises, limitations or goals of the projects were documented in the agreement, right? And if you signed the agreement, meaning that you agreed, you gave your consent to the investment pieces, and that you have read very carefully about the promises that you made to the investment as well. So, that's primarily I asked, if the witness himself actually signed the document, and it was very important to the juror. I would believe it was very important to the juror as well. And so, sounds to me today that we only had very limited time in the afternoon to cross-examining the witness today, and a large portion of today's trial was all about government making direct questioning with the witness. And so how was the prosecution team look like today? Obviously, they have a large team as well, right? They have several prosecutors with paralegals, assistants. Do they look tired? Do they get, any of, were there, any of interaction in terms of when defense was cross-examining the witness?
Well, one thing for sure is they stood up for objections a lot more than we did. Almost like every other minute, almost a little bit. I mean, and then also if you take a look at their body language a little bit, of course, Mr. Miles Gould, set
very
up,
calm,
chin up high, chest. I mean, he was on point. Mr. Miles Gould was on point, and our whole team was on point. Sabrina was on point. I mean, she's, just a wonderful lady. And then, but yeah, you can definitely tell the body language because we're seeing them from the back. The other team did towards the end. I feel like you can tell they were feeling the drag a little bit.
Yes, I totally agree. And also, in terms of feeling for each group, I would say for the prosecutors, they're more of partners. But then this, for us, is more of a team. So they're more, connected to each other. And also, the paralegal and Miles was talking to her, and then they were have exchanging communications and all that. I definitely feel the warmth between them.
For sure.
And the love.
Like when before we even began, I remember Mr. Miles Gould walks in, right? The door opens, he walks in, and then he was fixing the collar for Sid, our defense team. He's like, come get over here, He was fixing his collar and everything else. You can tell Mr. Miles Gould is really personable. He's very hands-on, and he really cares about his people and his team. It's one of those things, a lot of people, for everybody that's watching, you got to be there to experience it. But 100%, Mr. Miles Gould is.
And he was talking to the marshals, and I heard some, and then it sounds very, the English sounds very authentic. And pretty fluent, and they were just talking and joking, and I was to pay attention to hear what they were talking about. I couldn't hear; it was a bit far, but I can hear some words there and that. Yeah.
And so for people who miss Miles, right, obviously his English has improved a lot, that he can talk to marshals, his defense team without a translator. That was very impressive. For him as well, he always spent lots of time learning English. And so I would not surprised, that if, his English is much better than Jackson or Feder or me.
For sure.
His legal English. 100%.
Yeah. So we're very happy and honored today to have Jackson and Feder and share all of these core updates with us. Obviously, there are more to come in the upcoming days, right? And I would assume that the defense team will, bring up all of these good questions in terms of every witness that the government calls and fulfill the stories for the jurors to understand the entire picture of what Miles was doing in the past several years and what this entire political movement was about, right? So we have full confidence in Miles himself as always, and we have full confidence in his defense team as well, and we are much appreciated of their hard works every single day and of their companies with Miles in the past year. And so folks, stay tuned and follow us on NFSC Speaks at X, Getter, and every other social media platforms. Of course, we will join LFA TV every day from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And thank you, Jeremy, for give us the special hour segment for NFSC to share core updates, to have a handsome Jackson and beautiful Feder to present their personality and their beauty to the world and to our LFA families as well. We will pray for Miles, and we will come back tomorrow.